It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi. Hello. Well, yesterday we began with a new press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, for the Donald Trump administration. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of a difference in her presentation compared to Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yep.
You probably, if you watched it, said to yourself, I could articulate the contrast between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number one, Leavitt seems to be not looking down at any binder.
Oh, imagine that, actually knowing what you're talking about.
She doesn't seem confused. She's answering questions with specifics and looking right at you.
Yep. Not talking in circles.
What a change this is. Here is her opening statement from yesterday.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from our homeland, and restored common sense to the federal government. I want to take a moment to go through some of these extraordinary actions. On day one, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration. And this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration. Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected on the world stage. So, to foreign nationals who are thinking about trying to illegally enter the United States, think again. Under this president, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities. On January 23rd, ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for 2nd-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death in front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people, untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints, and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to help return America to a merit-based society. President Trump also signed an executive order declaring it is now the policy of the federal government that there are only 2 sexes, male and female.
That was the beginning of the White House press briefing yesterday, and then she announced this bombshell.
After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Now, I said bombshell because I saw the headline, bombshell. I'm like, oh, what's coming?
Right.
Bombshell from Trump at her first White House press briefing. And I'm thinking, oh, what is it? I go, oh, drones.
Well, I'll get into conspiracy mode. You know how you know it's the enemy? Because when they say it's not the enemy.
Now, she was the press secretary for the campaign. She was assistant press secretary and a writer in the last administration, and she ran for Congress in New Hampshire and lost. I think it was Chris Pappas. She lost to the Democrat in New Hampshire a few years back. Mm-hmm. You know what blows me away? She's 27.
Yeah.
The poise that she showed on that stage, on the biggest press stage in the world, is unbelievable to me. Just unbelievable.
Very impressive.
Because I know, Gary, you just told you're an ageist. I'm a reversed ageist. No, it's just most people need repetition over and over again in that type of setting. Experience, yes, to get used to that. For her to walk out, and I was watching when she walked out yesterday, and even again, every time I go, do I sense any nervousness? Now, she did read, and she was reading, that portion of it, but when she answered questions, she was looking straight ahead, not straight ahead, straight at the person, the reporter that was asking the question. Hardly ever, I didn't see her once. So I won't even say hardly ever because I didn't see her once look down, or when they're asking the question, like Karine Jean-Pierre going through that folder. Mm-hmm. You didn't see any of that.
Right. No.
And she answered every question with specifics. She brought up court precedent without looking down at anything, which means she was pretty well briefed before she walked in. She knew what the questions were going to be, but it's one thing to be briefed. It's another thing to understand and be able to regurgitate. That may not be the word, but in this case, I think it's appropriate. Regurgitate the specifics of a particular case that a reporter, it sounds like you have no idea, but you covered your bases, you did your research, and that's what I got. She was well prepared yesterday, and the poise that she showed, I don't think I've ever seen from anybody that young.
It's a full demonstration of the comprehension. You have to be able to, you have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You also have to have the ability to learn on the fly. You have to be a very quick learner and somebody who can in that moment take what you learn and apply it. It's one of those jobs that is like no other. I mean, there's only one at a time. Karine Jean-Pierre walked out with her book of answers that had no answers. The left media was frustrated because they weren't getting the proper talking points. That's all they wanted. But you saw it yesterday. If you were watching it, the questions, of course, were going to be like they all are with any GOP administration, especially coming in, and especially Trump. All of a sudden, the liberal activist media wakes up. And you'll hear them as they set the premise and pose a question, they're quite often on the wrong premise. They're actually lying if in that way, if you're posing a question with a false premise knowingly, well, you're lying. And that's going to continue. That's something they have to be prepared for. And I think Leavitt is.
Let's listen to her answer a question from an Associated Press reporter on whether she's going to lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Was that question ever asked to Karine Jean-Pierre?
No.
But here we go.
Miller.
Thanks, Karoline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day. I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people. And that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up Truth Seek, I would like to point out, while I vow to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So, yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
Well, good luck with the last part.
No hesitation.
Nope.
No pauses.
She doesn't flinch.
Nothing.
Just like her boss, she doesn't flinch. This is how you surround yourself with the people that don't flinch. We talked about this. All of his surrogates, staff, cabinet members, his VP, everybody involved, they don't flinch. I don't know if Mike Pence ever flinched because I don't think I've ever heard him talk. That's the difference. And you haven't heard him either.
For an extended length of time.
You haven't either because you can't prove that you did. But that's the difference between where he was years ago and where he is now. But it's also the very big difference between where we were, before January 20th and where we are now. The previous administration ran from the American people. While Biden was running in 2020, they hid him under the guise that they were keeping him safe from COVID. They didn't buy that science. And there's been a clear changing of the guard here. It is a vast difference. Trump, from minute one, his inauguration speech, set out that contrast in front of everybody. and they're doing it over and over every single day. They want the debate. They want that. Leavitt wants it clearly. You see it. Trump wants the debate. Make them come forward. Make them, in this case, ask all these questions and destroy them.
Well, we know that the last administration, and every Democrat listening knows, they couldn't defend what they believed, which is why they didn't try to.
Right.
And that's why you saw Harris, when she ran, that she tried to co-opt every major issue that Trump believed. In fact, started it out. This is the thing that I'll never forget, you and I looking at each other, because it was, when did she announce? Like on a Sunday, was it? Sunday or Monday?
Yeah.
And it was like by Wednesday, she had the ad out there about how tough she was going to be at the border, that Trump had failed at the border, and she was going to secure the border.
Right.
And there were pictures of the wall, and we sat there and watched it. And we were on the air while we were watching it. And I remember saying, nobody's going to buy this.
Right. And we were saying,
nobody's going to buy
you're
this.
vice president now. Why aren't you doing anything now?
And that question was asked.
Yeah.
And
it was so bad, they had to pretend she wasn't currently in office. That's how bad it was.
And so to see the contrast is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I think impactful to people when they see it. If you have an open mind, of course.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
866-90. That's a big if. 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Rain and high elevation snow in Southern California over the past weekend, and to start the week,
that has been a great benefit to those still trying to contain existing wildfires, and it has put a fortunate damper on any new wildfire activity.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says also beneficial, rains were light in the region, avoiding potential mudslides and flash flooding on fire-charged soils.
That storm system has moved on off, and it looks like dry weather is expected to return across Southern California for the next at least week or so, and then possibly some additional precipitation coming in February.
So in the short term, Southern California should be clear of wildfire activity.
That doesn't mean we're totally out of the woods. Most areas from Los Angeles to San Diego have had a record-setting dry start, at least until this recent event, to the wet season.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, we'll take a look at some of the picks. RFK Jr., I think, at 10 a.m. today. You've also got, this week, Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
And then Lori Chavez-DeRemer. We'll get to all of those coming up here in just following the bottom of the hour. A couple of comments. This is the one story that I objected to that's completely wrong.
Okay.
Very briefly here. This headline, healthy, satisfying alternatives to potato chips. Seriously, you'll adjust. That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. They went to psychologists, said people are addicted to potato chips. I'm sorry, there's no alternative for potato chips. Nothing. And I don't eat a lot of potato chips because I'm a type 2.
Right.
But nothing replaces them.
No, it doesn't.
Everything else is fake.
You either have potato chips or you do without. It's that simple.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't adjust to anything else.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always. Well, now we've got, let me see, Tulsi Gabbard this week, RFK Jr., I'm talking the major ones, and who else am I missing? Yeah, DeRemer for Labor Secretary. We already talked about that. That to me is the worst Trump pick. If she wouldn't get through, I'd be as happy as could be if she didn't get through as Labor Secretary. Trump does not lead a Labor Secretary that has endorsed unions in all levels of government. Sorry, gone. That's a disqualifier right there. With RFK Jr., never been a fan. And it's not about the vaccine thing. I mean, he was challenged the other day. I forgot who got him the other day. And it said, you said all vaccines are bad. He goes, no, I haven't. She played the cut. Goes, what I meant by that, that's not what you said. And Trump had to come in and say, no, I believe that many vaccines are great, like the polio vaccine. I'm not worried about that portion of it because he couldn't stop that. What worries me about RFK Jr. is the fact that he's the head of Medicare and he believes in nationalized health care.
Yeah.
It's the last person you want up there.
Right.
Absolutely. If he didn't get through, no problem whatsoever. There's somebody that could represent and I hate to tell this because Trump, I know what I believe. Apparently you don't in these cases.
Well,
with DeRemer and with RFK. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had to come out and say, no, I believe the polio vaccine is good. And so does he now.
Well, I don't need, again, you don't owe anything to RFK Jr. unless they put it in writing and there's a strict contract. But DeRemer, the same thing, it's payback to the unions. Well, is it? If you're not going to be profitable, there will be fewer union members. RFK, look, he was promoting abortion till birth and backed off of that, but still went to support abortion till viability. Well, those are major problems, and the Senate knows that. So on the broad vote, the GOP is going to have some issues there. I don't know how much of that influences who. Who were you saying on DeRemer? Was it Rand Paul saying he was a no?
Rand Paul said he's a no.
Okay.
Yeah. And he believes that she'll lose 15 Republican senators. He goes, but she'll get 25 Democrats. He goes, she may get all the Democrats may vote for her. That's how bad of a pick. She is.
And RFK doesn't have that luxury necessarily because they've already branded him as radical, even though he's pro-abortion. So I don't know. I still think there could be some Democrats voting for him.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, you look at Hegseth for the challenges and problems he had in his nomination process. At least I know he's 100% behind exactly what Trump wants. And there is nobody that I know out there who's as dedicated to keeping the wokeness. And the Democrats are trying to portray it. Oh, they're talking about this thing of wokeness. Yeah. Because when you're talking about people very close together, you want a unity message.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diversity is not the strength of the United States. It's the unity. And that's a big deal when you talk about people that are close together in fighting units.
Yep.
That have to have each other's back. That's what you wish to teach.
Yep.
Not that you need to be suspicious of that guy with that skin color over there because it's a little bit lighter than yours.
Right.
So, yeah, that's critically important. So Hegseth, I can say, no, he's lockstep. The only problem I have with Gabbard, and this goes back to when she and Matt Gaetz, called for the feds to drop the charges on Edward Snowden. Now, I know that we have disagreed with members of our audience on this many times before.
Mm-hmm.
He is no hero.
No.
The vast majority of what he stole from the federal government had absolutely nothing to do with the programs of privacy, of spying on Americans. The vast majority. I think the one, what was it, that MI6 had to pull agents out of hostile countries, stuff that had nothing to do, because there were top secret files that both Russia and China have that have nothing to do with that program.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with it. And as you had mentioned early on, way early on when this first happened, there was a whistleblower process that he could have gone to.
Yep.
And he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. In fact, he clearly went out of his way in order to try and make himself the hero. You can make every excuse in the book, but there is a process for that. And there are people, in fact, on Capitol Hill that if you go through that process would stand with you and say, okay, the point is we could have learned all of that and also had him go through the proper process.
Right. Now, I agree with her when she talks about the fact that we overclassify. And we're going to find that out with the JFK stuff, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If we actually overclassify. But we do overclassify. We know that. We overclassify. That's not the problem with Snowden. That's got nothing to do with Snowden overclassification.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And so that one thing is the one thing that sticks in the back of my mind, saying if she was publicly calling for it and ignored everything else that Snowden did, that he should get a pass on it, that's a big thing to worry about when you're dealing with national security.
Yep.
And giving advice to the president.
Yep.
You know, I don't know enough else about what is in all of her files. That would be just the one thing. And if she says I was wrong, the way she has turned around over the last couple of years on so many things and really rejected the Democratic Party, she might get a yes vote from me. But if it was up to me, it would be an absolute no for RFK Jr. and DeRemer for Labor Secretary.
Right.
It'd be a no.
Yeah.
Because you can find better people to replace both of them who are totally on board with what Trump wants to do.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I'm not worried about returning favors.
No.
I don't see that as that shouldn't have any place in the process, especially with cabinet picks. You know, I don't know, ambassador to a certain country. All right, fine.
Well,
we can talk about that, but even then, we're talking about international relations.
Well, I think what should happen here with if Kennedy, because he may get approved. You know, I don't know, but as soon as he gets approved, then they should put Elon Musk and Doge. Okay, better watch where he wants to spend the money.
Yeah, right.
But it's just those two are bizarre because they completely, with Tulsi Gabbard, I'm talking about one incident at one time. Yeah. And if I talk to her, she might alleviate all my fears. I go, yeah, okay, I'll vote for her. Good God. RFK Jr.'s a socialist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, on those issues of nationalized health care, it's completely the opposite of what I think Trump wants. Unless he now wants, Medicare for all.
Well,
unless that's where Trump is going. And if Trump is going there,
we talked about that.
He's probably got a big problem with a ton of conservatives out there.
Yeah, right.
But DeRemer is just buy, go, get out. She has expressed her support for unions in all levels of government, local, state, and national.
Yeah.
Are you out of your freaking mind?
Yeah. How about no?
Yeah. So we'll see how that all goes this
It'll be interesting.
Week.
I haven't seen anything on the head count, by the way. Nothing. So I wouldn't expect to on these three.
Well, look, in Trump's first term, The problems he had were people that he initially thought would agree with him and did not agree with him.
Yeah.
And that became a huge problem because some of them wanted to go off on their own, which is what, General Milley is facing right now. By the way, we talked about that a long time ago when it came out that he had talked to the Chinese and basically, told them, "Don't worry, we'll watch out." Sorry, you're gone at that point.
Right.
You talk to our enemies and do that, you're gone. And we said that back at that time.
Yep.
You're gone.
Yep.
What's happening to him is justified.
Yep.
Going and looking at him. You don't do that. And then it was at Bernstein's book that he was walking around telling people all the time, just complaining about Trump constantly. You can't do that.
No.
As the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you can't do that. You're not in charge. You're the military. The civilian, and as we found out, was Trump bad at all when it came to international politics back then? The results.
No.
Of what? No, not at all.
No. In fact, it's a lot like what's going on now in many ways. The difference is he didn't have a solid team around him in lockstep with his agenda.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You
Right.
don't need on a lot of these big issues.
Right.
You don't need people that, unless Trump is back to maybe we should, because he said that one time, remember? Maybe we need to look at more expanding Medicare. It's like, oh, no.
Yeah. Well.
Now, he hasn't said that since, and that was he president yet, or was that before?
No, that was before he was president.
That was way before his president.
I believe it was on Letterman.
Okay. Oh, my God, he was on Letterman?
Yeah, I think it goes back actually to 2015.
Does it? Okay.
I think it was early 2015, if I remember. Like, I want to say January, February 2015. I'll see if I can find that, by the way. It's got to be out there somewhere. It's got to be on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. It's got to be on YouTube. But it was in that cut, that clip was in circulation after he announced for 2016 at some point.
Yeah, I know it was after he announced because I remember we talked about it.
Yeah,
We went,
the actual interview happened before. It was a part of a book. I don't remember what he was promoting on Letterman.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But if Kennedy or DeRemer don't make it, no big loss. You can find somebody else. I don't think the president should want to die on those hills.
No,
or any member of Congress. I don't think is dying, on that hill by doing it if they come.
Right.
If they come, because you don't see anybody. Rand Paul came out. You hear anybody in the Trump administration saying Rand Paul needs to get by and back the people? Did you see anything? I haven't seen anything on X from the Trump the Trump advocates going,
no,
doggone it, we need to primary Rand Paul because he's against DeRemer or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no.
And I don't see the same thing for Hegseth or for even Kennedy as I did for Hegseth.
No. No.
If anybody's against RFK Jr., primary them.
Right.
Why? Because every Republican and every conservative knows their obvious weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty clear. This is why I think the hearings are going to be very interesting. But ultimately, I'm really curious about how the vote goes on all three of them.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, let me check this off my list.
Yeah, what do you got?
Drones no longer a problem. Okay.
Yeah, well,
drone story solved.
I trust Trump more than Biden on this. But sorry, I still think I think it's Canada. So it is the enemy. The whole thing was just so hyper, I don't know, hyper crazy with everything. Look at the, and by the way, our friends at the New York Post, you're not helping. We love you, but come on.
Well, remember the story. The one I got concerned was they believe these drones may be coming from a Chinese ship off our shores.
Well, it was an Iranian ship.
Was it Iranian?
It was a mothership that that Iran bought from China.
That was
a lawmaker saying that.
Right. And and we're like, and we don't know that? And we haven't blown that ship out of the water?
Right. Have they found it? Right. What happened to it?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.